Good evening and welcome. Tonight we will be going over the history and geography of Andhra Pradesh in India. Andhra Pradesh, you can see, is pretty large. It was once much larger, as we'll learn in its history, but it's one of the bigger ones. India has some really large states, some very small states. This one's kind of in the middle. It's like one of the smaller of the larger ones, I'd say. Andhra Pradesh, as you can see, is located in southern India just as it begins to narrow here. And it has three main geographic zones. The first one, of course, as you can see, is the coastline here, along with the Bay of Bengal and the Indian Ocean. This is pretty much where the majority of people live. Lots of major cities along the coast, lots of nice beaches as well. The most populous and I believe largest by area city is Visakhapatnam up here. Really big city. But there are many here along the coast. Not much else to say about the coast. I guess I could talk about the river deltas. We have, I have to look closely, make sure I'm pointing out the right ones, because there's so many rivers that flow out here. We have the Godavari here. And over here we have the Krishna River. It kind of makes up this border here and then flows out the Krishna River. And there's also the Penir River. I've seen it spelled so many different ways, so I think that's how you pronounce it. So these are very large river deltas. Very marshy and mangrovey as well around those areas. And it's between these rivers in particular, in this region here, between those two rivers, where it's very, very fertile, very rich soil. So lots of farming happening there. It's farmland throughout pretty much the entirety of Andhra Pradesh. Almost the entirety. The Eastern Ghat mountain range, you can see here, the Eastern Ghats. Cut through about, like where my pencil's going, they come through here and then make up most of the border here. Big, in terms of India, I guess big. They obviously get way bigger up there in the Himalayas, but much larger than the rest of the terrain around it. You've got the coastal, very flat, watery delta regions here, so this area is much more elevated. And then in this region here, we have the Deccan Plateau, where these are the Eastern Ghats, the Western Ghats are over here. And in the middle is the Deccan Plateau. Very dry and rocky, although there are much more drier and rockier places in India up there. But they're kind of the highland region is right here. It's a bit culturally different than the coasts here. This region is historically known as Rayalaseema. I hope I said that right. I'm probably not going to say things right. Please feel free to correct me down in the comments. But I'm kind of pronouncing things in the American English version. You know, it's very different from the Indian pronunciations. But at least in American English, we call this the Deccan Plateau. So it makes up like this chunk here. So we have the coast, the mountains, and the plateau. There are three geographic regions. So I'm sure you're wondering what happened to the size of this state, because I said it used to be much larger. And I'll tell you another interesting geography fact about Andhra Pradesh is the capital of the state is Hyderabad. Which, if you're looking through here, where's Hyderabad? Where's Hyderabad? It is up here in Telangana state. And I'm sure you're scratching your head. Why in the world is a city that's not in the state the capital of the state? Hyderabad's also the capital of Telangana. And I'm sure you're going like, why? Why would they do such a thing? Well, let's talk about it. But we're going to start way back in history. Sometime around the 8th century BCE, it's estimated that the Andhra people arrived in the region here, hence the name Andhra Pradesh. We don't know a lot about the kind of more ancient cultures of the Andhra people. We know they were Hindu. Most people in this area were at the time. But we don't know much about them individually. We do know, what we do know about them comes from the time of Emperor Ashoka during the Mauryan dynasty. Very famously, he fought the Kalinga people who actually had control of this area. So they had control of most of what's now northern Andhra Pradesh. Ashoka conquered them, defeated them in a massive bloody battle that was so bad he questioned his morals and became a Buddhist and spread Buddhism throughout his kingdom. So Buddhism arrived here at that time, and various different kingdoms would come and go in this region. The major Buddhist one, besides the Mauryans, of course, was the Satavaharas. I'm trying to think what to say. They brought Buddhism to the region and were very prosperous for a hot minute. From about the 1st century BCE to the 3rd century CE was the height of their power. They would, wane and another power would rise. The Chola Empire dominated the southern tip, so they controlled part of the region up here. They brought the Telugu language to the region, which is the predominant language of Andhra Pradesh today. They were also Hindu and re-established Hinduism in the region, and that's definitely the more predominant religion in Andhra Pradesh today. The Delhi Sultanate would make its way all the way down here for a couple of years, bringing Islam to the more interior regions. It really took off and built a lot of forts. Islamic dynasties, Muslim dynasties love their forts, so of course they built lots of cool forts that you can still explore today. They're all museums now. But the most prominent empire to control the region was the Vijayanagara, one of the iconic empires of Indian history. Not much to say about their role in this area, though, because this wasn't their primary stomping ground. But they controlled the area until the 1600s, once their power started to wane and various Muslim Khanates took over. The Nizams were the ones who had control. You can see Nizam about over here. They had control when the British and the French started to slowly creep into the area. The French had lots of trading ports here in the north. The British had them more down here in the more interior regions, and slowly but surely they sank their claws into the pulse of the political community and gained more and more and more power until the British East India Company took over the entire region and even got it from the French up here. The French had it until 1804, when they finally were like, you know what? There's a lot going on in France in 1804. You can just have it. France had bigger fish to fry in 1804. The British took over their territory here in Andhra Pradesh. That, of course, evolved into the British Raj. Once India was a part of Britain, and they held on to this region with an iron grip. They sank their claws and they weren't going to let go. There were many protests all throughout India, but there were some in Andhra Pradesh as well. Most of them peaceful, of course, in the early to mid 20th century, as they were in India. They were very successful, of course. India gained its independence in 1948. I didn't write that down. I'm pretty sure that's right, though, 1948. But, it wasn't a perfect country by any means once they gained independence. It was a very broken country in more ways than one. More ways than 2 or 3. More like 100 ways. And one of those ways was how to divide up the country into its own administrative areas. There was a movement for a separate Andhra state, and a man named Poti Sriramulu led the protest for that. He actually fasted to death. He did not survive his fast. And that really spearheaded the movement to create the separate Andhra state. Which, like I said, was much larger. It included, I think, more of the north, way more of the interior, and a bit more of the south. I think it included what's now Chennai. It was Madras back then. I think it was called Madras State as well at that time. And that gave the Indian government the idea of how they should drop their administrative regions. Because before, it was by religion. That did not go well. Very famously, that went extremely poorly. Then it was, by ethnic group. That wasn't going as well. So, once there was a separate Andhra state, a Telugu-speaking people, they were like, why don't we draw them up by language? Because, we have over 26 languages. One state for each language. And that's pretty much how we got the divisions of India that we have today, all divided up by what language they speak. Which is kind of interesting that that's how that came about. But all was still not perfect. The coastal region here was thriving in terms of farming and industry. The interior, not so much. It was pretty much just Hyderabad being a big power, and the rest was just kind of doing its own thing. So there was a movement to get a separate state for Telangana. And there were lots of protests, movements, however you want to describe it, for that to happen. And it didn't happen until 2014 when they drew the lines and officially made this Andhra Pradesh, made that Telangana. But they kept the capital city of Hyderabad. So there's a couple of cities I know that are vying to become the new capital. Obviously, Visakhapatnam is the obvious choice, it being the largest, but there's a couple others that are more like historically good for capitals. But it's not official yet. It's still something that the Indian government needs to work out, and not a priority, So someday, the capital will move from Hyderabad to a different city. It's just a matter of time. We'll have to keep an eye on the news to see if that happens. It's not going to happen anytime soon, not in this year, probably the next. But eventually it's going to happen. They're going to get their own capital city. But right now, fun trivia fact, it's Hyderabad, a town that's not even in their state. So I think that's all I wanted to cover. It's one of those places that I could tell you a whole bunch of stuff. Like I could have gone on about the Vijayanagara Empire, or I could just shrink it down for you. So I shrunk it down for you. Also, let me grab Google Earth. I did not find a lot of places to show you in this state, very surprisingly. Because it's a big place. Let me zoom out so you can see exactly where we are. Here's all of India. And here's Andhra Pradesh. So you can see it's pretty big, but there are much bigger states in India. And then if you're not sure where India is, we have Asia here, Southeast Asia, Central Asia. Here's the Himalayas, and the Middle East over here. Let's look through the slideshow. Beautiful Hindu temples. They're all over the place. Of course, there's trains. This is Srinagar. And lots of industry, lots of dams as well. Lots of these waterways going through are dammed. And ooh, that's amazing. Create lots and lots of energy for the state and the surrounding areas. Lots of industry happening here. Lots of beautiful Hindu temples. So pretty. I really love religious architecture. All the farmland here. And big peaks there. Little foresty villages. There's a lot to see, that's so cool. There must be I don't know, maybe that's the top of a temple, or maybe a parade float or something. It's really beautiful. And the more rugged areas. Over here you can see there's lots of forests and protected areas, but like the slideshows just aren't that great. They're fine. There's a big dam. Like I want to show you like what the forest looks like, and very good pictures. I guess that's very beautiful. It's very Indian. That kind of red rock soil there. But yeah, the slideshows, that's pretty. Aren't too cool around here. They're not that interesting. So if you want to play around on Google Earth and try to find some cool pictures, please show me. I'll show you something cool though. Look at this. You can see this big lake here. This strip of land. Over here. We have the Satish Dhawan Space Center. One of my favorite passions is space, because I consider space to be geography. It's about a place, right? This is a place where they launch rockets. And look, over here is the place that they set up so that you can watch rocket launches. Check it out. You can get seats and everything. The rockets. There's a little museum there. Let's see. Maybe it's not this slideshow. It's fun. What did I see? Where there you can actually see some rockets. Maybe it's this one. Yeah. Pew, blasting off. I've never seen a rocket blast off into space. I bet it's something else, but that's so cool. I love that they have a little area here for you to come and see the rockets. If I lived nearby, I would be going there all the time. But they have a cool museum over here. Lots of photos and miniatures of India's very many space programs. The big, looks like this. Looks like a telescope. I can't read. They won't let me zoom in anymore. So I can't read all the little details on things. Look, this is Professor Satish Dhawan. I can't zoom in. I'd have to lean in close to see. I'm too far away from the tablet. But yeah, very cool. Humble beginning. How cool is that? There's a space center here. If there's ever a territory with a space center, 100% I'm going to show you on Google Earth. I've done Alabama, I've did Amr, and now it's Andhra Pradesh. You can see the rivers from up here. You can see the Deccan Plateau region I'm telling you about. There's the Eastern Ghats and the Western Ghats in the interior plateau region. Little mountainy places around here and forests as well. There's the rivers. You can see, the various greeny green alluvial soil of the farmlands here. Look at all those towns. My goodness. There we go. But I will close this out. There's like little slideshows all throughout the rivers here, but they're just not exciting, like the mangrove forest. It's mangroves. Like, I don't know. They're just like, I didn't find anything too cool to show you. So let's head up to Shankpatnam. And I found a zoo up here. Wildlife sanctuary. I'm going to close it out here looking at the cool animals. There's a deer, giraffes, a jaguar, a white tiger. How cool is that? Sweet elephants, my favorite animals. This is the kind of picture I'd want to show you of the incredible, incredible landscape here. Mist rolling in, big green mountains, lots of gorgeous trees lit up by the sunlight. These are the kind of pictures I want to show you. So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy this style of content, please consider subscribing. Next, we're going to be heading up to Central Asia to Uzbekistan. So be sure to subscribe so you won't miss out. A little friend here. I hope that you found this video relaxing and educational. It's a rhino. And I hope it's a bear. I hope that you have a good